The air crackled with static, sharp, and electric as Alex Carter stumbled out of the void. One moment, he was hunched over his glowing laptop in a dimly lit Brooklyn apartment, the hum of servers his only companion. The next, he was sprawled face down in the mud, the acrid scent of wood smoke and horse manure assaulting his senses. His VR headset was gone, his keyboard nowhere in sight. Instead, a cold wind whipped through his hoodie, and the distant clatter of hooves echoed in the twilight. "Yo, what the hell?" Alex muttered, scrambling to his feet. His sneakers sank into the muck, and he squinted at the scene before him. A dirt road lined with rickety wooden buildings, their windows glowing with the flicker of candlelight. Men in tricorn hats and women in bonnets hustled past, casting wary glances at the stranger in the bizarre black sweatshirt, emblazoned with a neon 404 Reality Not Found logo. A horse-drawn cart rattled by, splashing Alex with mud. He wiped his face, only to realize his smartwatch was fritzing out, its screen flashing random numbers before going dark. This wasn't a simulation. This wasn't some hyper-realistic hackathon stunt. This was real. The year, as he'd later pieced together from a tattered broadsheet nailed to a tavern wall, was 1700 Colonial America. And Alex Carter, self-proclaimed code wizard and blockchain bro, was stuck in it. Alex's first hours in this strange new world were a blur of panic and profanity. He'd been debugging a quantum encryption algorithm when his experimental AI rig cobbled, together with stolen Pentagon code and a sketchy dark web quantum chiffid gone haywire. A flash of light, a scream of feedback, and now here he was, stranded in a land where Wi-Fi was unimaginable and data meant stacks of moldy parchment. His only clue to the disaster was a faint, cryptic message burned into his memory from the AI's final output. Temporal displacement initiated. Target 1700. Objective: fix the chaos. Chaos, as it turned out, was the perfect word for colonial America. Alex learned this the hard way when he wandered into the bustling port town of Charlestown, South Carolina, a humid, mosquito-ridden hub of trade and tension. The streets buzzed with merchants haggling over tobacco and indigo, while red-coated British officials strutted about, barking orders to collect taxes that nobody seemed eager to pay. The system was a mess tax. Records were scribbled on scraps of paper, often lost or forged, and the local populace was one bad harvest away from revolt. Alex overheard heated arguments in the tavern, farmers cursing the crown's levies, sailors muttering about smuggling to dodge duties, and magistrates lamenting the utter disarray of their ledgers. This is like blockchain before blockchain, Alex mused, nursing a mug of watery ale in a dimly lit corner of the rusty Anchor Tavern. No transparency, no trust, just a bunch of dudes yelling about money. His coder's brain sparked to life. If he was stuck here, he could at least make a dent in the madness. He'd built decentralized apps that tracked billion-dollar crypto transactions. Surely he could whip up a system to fix this colonial tax nightmare. Plus, if the AI's cryptic message was right, fixing the chaos might be his ticket back to 2025. The plan formed quickly, fueled by desperation and a double shot of Colonial rum. Alex needed tools, allies, and a way to blend in before someone decided his hoodie was proof of witchcraft. His first stop was a cramped stationer's shop, where he traded his titanium vape pen passed off as a futuristic trinket for a stack of parchment, a quill, and a pot of ink. The shopkeeper, a wiry man named Ezekiel Pratt, eyed him suspiciously but couldn't resist the shiny gadget. "You're no ordinary traveler, are ye?" Ezekiel muttered, pocketing the vape. Alex just grinned, dodging the question. Back at the tavern, Alex set to work, sketching out a prototype for a double-entry ledger system, a concept that wouldn't be formalized for decades, but was second nature to him from his accounting apps. He drew columns for debits and credits, cross-referenced with merchant names and tax categories, all designed to track every shilling with ruthless precision. The quill was a nightmare to use, its scratchy nib splattering ink across his hands. "This thing's worse than a dial-up modem," he grumbled, dubbing it his USB quill in a fit of homesick humor. The nickname stuck, and soon he was chuckling to himself, imagining the quill as a relic of some ancient tech startup. But Alex knew a fancy ledger wasn't enough. He needed to sell it to someone with power, someone who could keep him from starving in this pre-industrial hellscape. That someone turned out to be Magistrate Jeremiah Hawthorne, a portly, red-faced official who presided over Charlestown's tax disputes with the enthusiasm of a man facing a root canal. Alex caught wind of Hawthorne's woes during a public shouting match in the town square, where a crowd of farmers accused the magistrate of skimming their taxes. "The books don't lie," Hawthorne bellowed, waving a dog-eared ledger. "But they don't add up neither," a farmer shot back, to raucous cheers. Seizing his chance, Alex elbowed his way through the crowd, clutching his parchment prototype. "Magistrate Hawthorne," he called, his Brooklyn accent jarring against the Colonial drawls. "I've got a system that'll fix your tax mess. No more lost records, no more fights. Everything tracked, clean, as a freshly printed almanac." The crowd snickered at his odd phrasing, but Hawthorne's bloodshot eyes narrowed with interest. "You, lad, a scholar of numbers?" he asked, sizing up Alex's muddy hoodie and unkempt beard. "Something like that," Alex replied, flashing a cock. The narrative continues with Alex presenting his ledger system to Magistrate Hawthorne, facing skepticism and humor as he explains modern accounting with his USB quill. His unconventional appearance and speech draw attention, but his system's clarity intrigues Hawthorne, setting the stage for the next part of the story. The Charlestown magistrate's office smelled of damp wood and sour ambition, a cramped room where candlelight danced across stacks of crumbling ledgers. Alex Carter stood before Magistrate Jeremiah Hawthorne, his parchment prototype unfurled on a scarred oak table, its neat columns a stark contrast to the chaos of colonial bookkeeping. His heart pounded not from nerves, but from the sheer absurdity of it all. Here he was, a 21st century hacker, pitching double-entry accounting to a man who thought innovation meant a sharper quill. Alex's hoodie, now smeared with mud and ink, drew curious stares from the room's other occupants, a dour clerk named Silas Grubb and a sharp-eyed woman in a crimson gown, introduced as Eliza Hammond, a merchant's widow with a knack for numbers. "Explain this, contraption," Hawthorne demanded, jabbing a meaty finger at Alex's ledger. His voice was gravelly, worn from years of shouting down unruly taxpayers. "And mind you, boy, I've no patience for trickery." Alex flashed a grin, channeling the confidence of a startup bro at a venture capital pitch. "No trickery, sir. This is a system clean, efficient like a ship's rigging, but for money." He tapped the parchment, his USB quill tucked behind his ear like a coder's pen. Every shilling tracked, every tax recorded. No more lost scraps. No more farmers claiming they paid already. It's foolproof. Hawthorne squinted, his bushy brows knitting together. Silas, the clerk, snorted, muttering something about fancy nonsense, but Eliza leaned forward, her dark eyes gleaming with intrigue. "Show me," she said, her voice low and smooth, like velvet draped over steel. Alex caught a whiff of her rosewater perfume, and for a moment, he forgot the quill in his hand. "Focus, Carter," he thought, shaking off the distraction. He walked them through the system, his Brooklyn slang slipping out as he described debits and credits. "Think of it like a blockchain, a chain of truth. Every entry locks in, so nobody can fudge the numbers." The room stared blankly at blockchain, but his enthusiasm was infectious. He sketched a sample entry on a spare parchment, logging a fictional tax payment from John Mercer, tobacco farmer. The numbers aligned perfectly, the balance ticking up with mathematical grace. Eliza's lips curved into a smile, and even Hawthorne grunted in approval. "This could work," the magistrate admitted, stroking his chin. "But why should I trust you, a stranger who dresses like a pirate's fool and speaks like a madman?" Alex's stomach lurched. He'd anticipated skepticism, but hadn't planned for the colonial equivalent of a background check. "I'm just a traveler with a knack for numbers," he said, dodging the question. "Back in, New Amsterdam, I fixed ledgers for merchants. A lie, but close enough to his crypto, accounting gigs to sound plausible." Eliza's gaze lingered on him, sharp and unreadable. "New Amsterdam, you say?" Curious. "They call it New York now, don't they?" Her tone was playful, but there was an edge to it, like a blade hidden in silk. Alex swallowed, nodding, and prayed she wouldn't press further. The meeting ended with a cautious deal. Alex would implement his system for a trial run, starting with Charlestown's tax records for the past month. If it worked, Hawthorne promised a stipend and lodgings a lifeline for a time traveler with no shillings to his name. If it failed, well, the magistrate's glare suggested a less pleasant outcome, possibly involving a noose. Alex threw himself into the work, setting up shop in a drafty attic above the rusty Anchor Tavern. By day, he transcribed tax records onto fresh parchment, his ledger system transforming the town's financial mess into crisp, organized columns. By night, he wrestled with homesickness, doodling circuit diagrams in the margins of his notes and muttering about Wi-Fi. The USB quill became his running joke, a private rebellion against the era's techless misery. "Come on, baby, don't crash on me," he'd whisper, dipping the quill in ink as if it were a temperamental laptop. The townsfolk noticed the stranger's odd habits. Farmers delivering tax payments gawked at his hoodie, now patched with burlap to blend in. Sailors in the tavern spun tales of the mad scribe who talked to his quill like a lover. Alex leaned into the mystique, cracking jokes about his magic parchment to deflect questions. But not everyone was charmed. Silas Grubb, the clerk, shadowed him constantly, sniffing for fraud. "You're no scholar," Silas sneered one evening, catching Alex muttering about spreadsheets. "What's your game, boy?" "Just trying to make a living," Alex shot back, but Silas's suspicions gnawed at him. Worse, whispers of spy began to circulate. The colonies were a hotbed of mistrust, with Britain, France, and Spain vying for control. A stranger with no past was a walking red flag. The tension spiked when Eliza Hammond appeared at Alex's attic one stormy night, her cloak dripping with rain. "You're causing quite a stir, Mr. Carter," she said, closing the door behind her. The candlelight cast shadows across her face, accentuating the curve of her cheekbones. "Your ledger is brilliant, but it's making enemies. Silas thinks you're a French agent. Others say you're a sorcerer." Alex laughed, but it came out shaky. "Sorcerer? Nah, I'm just a guy with a quill and a dream." He gestured to his ledger, now a thick stack of parchment. "This thing's gonna save Charlestown's economy. Why is everyone so paranoid?" Eliza stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Because your system exposes truths. Merchants who've dodged taxes, clerks who've pocketed shillings, they're all sweating now. And you, with your strange words and stranger clothes." She trailed off, her fingers brushing the edge of his hoodie. "You're not from New York, are you?" Alex's pulse raced. Her touch was light, but her words were heavy, probing for secrets he couldn't share. "I'm from far away," he said, meeting her gaze. "But I'm here to help, I swear." She studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "Prove it. Finish the ledger. But watch your back. Silas has the governor's ear, and he's itching to see you hang." The drama came to a head 2 days later, when Silas burst into the magistrate's office during Alex's progress report. "This man's a fraud," the clerk roared, brandishing a scrap of Alex's Notisa doodle of a circuit board, mistaken for a coded message. "He's plotting against the crown. I found this in his room." The room erupted. Hawthorne's face reddened, and the guards at the door drew closer. Alex's mind raced, his coder instincts kicking in. Improvise, debug, survive. "That's just a sketch," he protested, snatching the paper. "It's a map. Yeah, a map of trade routes to optimize tax collection." It was a flimsy lie, but Eliza, standing silently in the corner, seized the moment. "Magistrate, I've reviewed Mr. Carter's ledger," she said, her voice calm but commanding. "It's flawless. If he's a spy, he's the most diligent one I've ever seen. Let him finish the trial." Hawthorne hesitated, torn between Silas's accusations and Eliza's endorsement. Finally, he waved a hand. "1 week, Carter. Complete the ledger, or I'll have you in irons, and Silas bring me proof of his treachery, or hold your tongue." Alex exhaled, his knees weak with relief. Eliza caught his eye, her smile fleeting but conspiratorial. As the room cleared, she leaned in, her breath warm against his ear. "You owe me," she whispered, "and I always collect." The trial run continued, but the stakes were higher now. Alex worked feverishly, his ledger growing into a masterpiece of colonial finance. Merchants began to trust the system, their tax payments flowing smoothly for the first time in years. But Silas's accusations lingered, and the word spy followed Alex like a shadow. Worse, Eliza's warning echoed in his mind. His ledger was exposing corruption, and powerful men wanted Itend him gone. As he scratched out another entry by candlelight, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. The attic creaked, and a shadow flickered outside his window. Was it Silas? A spy of another kind? Or something tied to the Kormaithoigian, hinted at by his AI's cryptic message? The answers were out there, in the humid streets of Charlestown, and Alex knew he'd have to find them before the governor's deadline, or his neck ran out of time. The Charlestown governor's mansion loomed like a fortress of colonial ambition, its oak doors carved with pompous flourishes that mocked Alex Carter's predicament. Inside, the air was thick with wax and tension, the kind that clung to your skin. and whispered of doom. Alex stood at the center of a dimly lit chamber, his patched hoodie and ink-stained fingers a jarring contrast to the powdered wigs and velvet coats around him. Governor Nathaniel Blake, a wiry man with eyes like a hawk's, had issued the ultimatum 2 days ago. Fix Charlestown's entire tax ledger every shilling, every merchant, every discrepancier face the gallows for suspected espionage. 48 hours, no sleep, and a pair of red coat guards watching his every move. Alex's USB quill trembled in his hand as he scratched out another entry, the scratch of nib on parchment, his only anchor in the chaos. The governor's deadline was dawn, and the clock, well, the hourglass on the table, was bleeding sand faster than a DDoS attack. He was holed up in a side room of the mansion, surrounded by crumbling ledgers and suspicious stares. His modern accounting system, once a quirky experiment, was now his lifeline, and the weight of it pressed against his chest like a server crash at crunch time. "Focus, Carter," he muttered, wiping sweat from his brow. His Brooklyn accent felt alien here, a glitch in the Colonial matrix. The ledger was nearly complete, its neat columns transforming Charlestown's financial mess into a masterpiece of clarity. But the real game changer was the bar chart he'd sketched, a bold, ink-drawn visualization of tax contributions by merchant, designed to shock the governor into seeing the system's value. It was a risk, introducing data viz to a world that barely grasped algebra, but Alex was betting his neck on it. The past 2 days had been a crucible of stress and intrigue. After Silas Grubb's accusation of espionage, Alex had been marched to the governor's mansion under guard, his doodled circuit board confiscated as evidence. The trial run of his ledger had shown promise, but Silas's whispers had poisoned the air. "He's a French spy," the clerk hissed to anyone who'd listen, "sent to sabotage our economy." The townsfolk, already jittery from tax disputes, lapped up the gossip. Even Eliza Hammond, Alex's enigmatic ally, had grown distant, her cryptic smiles replaced by guarded glances. Eliza was the wild card in this mess. She'd saved him from Silas's initial outburst, but her motives were murky. Was she protecting him out of belief in his system, or was she playing a deeper game? Her rosewater scent lingered in his memory, as did her whispered warning, "Watch your back." Late on the first night, she'd slipped into the mansion's side room, her crimson gown a splash of color against the gloom. "You're close, Alex," she'd said, peering at his ledger. "But you're stirring a hornet's nest. Finish this, and you'll have enemies in high places." "Enemies?" Alex had scoffed, though his pulse quickened at her proximity. "I'm just a guy with a quill." Her laugh was low, almost predatory. "You're no ordinary scribe. And that chart," she tapped his half-finished bar chart, her fingers grazing his. "It'll expose truths some would kill to bury." Before he could press her, she was gone, leaving only the echo of her words and a flicker of unease. The guards, meanwhile, were relentless. One, a burly man named Corporal Amos Reed, hovered over Alex's shoulder, muttering about devil's work whenever Alex cross-referenced a taxpayer ID. The other, a younger soldier named Thomas Pike, seemed more curious than hostile, asking about the magic lines of the bar chart. Alex leaned into the mystique, calling it a map of money's soul, which earned a chuckle from Thomas but a scowl from Amos. Every hour, Silas slunk in to inspect the work, his beady eyes hunting for errors. Alex caught him once, lingering over a page, as if memorizing it for some darker purpose. The tension peaked on the second night, as a storm battered Charlestown with howling winds and sheets of rain. Alex was down to his final entries, his hands cramping from the quill's relentless scratch. The bar chart was done, its stark bars revealing a bombshell. Silas Grubb, the clerk who'd accused Alex of treason, had underpaid his taxes by a staggering amount, funneling shillings into his own pocket. The numbers didn't lie, and Alex's ledger laid them bare. He was inking the final balance when the door slammed open, and Silas stormed in, flanked by 2 new guards. "Enough of this farce," he bellowed, snatching a page from the table. "This man's ledger is a lie, a plot to ruin honest men." He waved the page, his face purple with rage. "Governor Blake must see this for what it is edition." Alex's heart stopped. The guards advanced, their bayonets glinting in the candlelight. He was out of time, out of tricks. "Wait!" he shouted, leaping to his feet. "The ledger's done. Look at it. Look at the chart. It shows the truth, and Silas knows it." The room froze. Amos, the surly guard, hesitated, glancing at the parchment. Thomas, the curious one, stepped forward, peering at the bar chart. "What's this?" he asked, tracing the bars with a calloused finger. It names Master Grubb." Silas's eyes widened, a bead of sweat rolling down his temple. "Lies!" he spat, but his voice cracked. Alex seized the moment, his coder's instincts kicking in like a debug script. "Check the numbers," he urged, shoving the ledger toward Amos. Every entry cross-referenced, every shilling tracked. Silas has been skimming taxes. Taxes are short by 20 shillings this month alone. The guards exchanged looks. Amos grudgingly flipped through the ledger, his lips moving as he traced the columns. Thomas, meanwhile, studied the chart, its stark bars a silent accusation. Silas lunged for the parchment, but Thomas blocked him, his youthful face hardening. "Stand down, Master Grubb," he said. "The governor will see this." Dawn broke over Charlestown, the storm's fury fading to a drizzle. Alex stood before Governor Blake in the mansion's grand hall, his ledger and chart spread across a mahogany table. The room was packed magistrates, merchants, even Eliza, her expression unreadable. Silas stood in the corner, pale and silent, his fate hanging on the governor's verdict. Alex's voice was steady as he presented his work, his Brooklyn slang softened to fit the room's formality. "This ledger tracks every tax payment for October," he said, gesturing to the neat columns. "And this chart shows who's paid what. You'll see discrepancies." He pointed to Silas's bar, dwarfed by those of honest merchants like John Mercer and Eliza Hammond. The room murmured, eyes darting to the clerk. Blake studied the chart, his hawkish gaze unyielding. "Remarkable," he said at last, his voice cutting through the tension. "This picture of numbers reveals much." He turned to Silas, whose bravado had crumbled. "Master Grubb, your contributions seem lacking. Care to explain?" Silas stammered, his excuses unraveling like a bad script. The governor's patience snapped. "Guards, detain him," he ordered. Amos and Thomas hauled Silas away, his protests echoing down the hall. The crowd erupted in whispers, some shocked, others smug. Eliza's lips twitched, a flicker of triumph in her eyes. Blake turned to Alex, his expression softening. "You've done a service, Mr. Carter. Your system is a marvel, and your life is spared. More than that, I'd have you as my chief scribe, with a purse of gold and lodgings in Charlestown." Alex exhaled, the weight of the gallows lifting. He'd done it, debugged the Colonial economy, and saved his neck. But as the room buzzed with praise, Eliza slipped to his side, her voice a sultry whisper. "Well played, time traveler," she said, her words freezing his blood. "But your work's not done. Meet me at the docks tonight. Someone's found your machine." The Charlestown docks shimmered under a crescent moon, their wooden planks slick with sea spray and secrets. The air was heavy with salt and anticipation, the kind that curled around your senses and promised revelations or ruin. Alex Carter stood at the edge of the pier, his patched hoodie swapped for a borrowed linen shirt and breeches that clung to his frame, accentuating the lean lines of a man who'd spent days hunched over parchment. His USB quill was tucked into his belt, a talisman of his strange journey, and his heart thrummed with a mix of dread and exhilaration. Eliza Hammond's words echoed in his mind. "Meet me at the docks tonight. Someone's found your machine." The governor's offer still rang in his earshif scribe, a purse of gold, a life in Charlestown. It was a lifeline, a chance to carve out a place in this alien world of 1,700. But Eliza's whisper had upended everything. Time traveler, machine. How did she know? And what did it mean for his chances of getting back to 2025, to his Brooklyn apartment and his humming servers? The docks held the answers, and Alex was ready to chase them, even if it meant diving headfirst into danger. The harbor was alive with shadow sailors hauling crates, lanterns swaying on moored ships, and the distant laughter of tavern-goers spilling into the night. Alex's boots thudded against the planks as he scanned the darkness, his coder's instincts on high alert. Eliza had told him to find the Sea Serpent, a sloop docked at the far end of the pier, but the ship's name sent a chill down his spine. Was it a coincidence, or a nod to the quantum chip that had sparked his time travel disaster, codenamed Serpent, in his AI's logs? The past few hours had been a whirlwind. After Silas Grubb's disgrace, Charlestown had buzzed with talk of the mad scribe and his miraculous ledger. Merchants like John Mercer clapped Alex on the back, grateful for a system that protected their shillings. Governor Nathaniel Blake had been true to his word, offering a modest room in the mansion and a stipend that felt like a fortune in this cash-strapped era. Even Corporal Amos Reed, the surly guard, had grunted a reluctant, "Well done," as he returned Alex's confiscated circuit board doodle. But the victory was bittersweet. Silas's downfall had exposed the ledger's power and its threat. Whispers of sorcery resurfaced, fueled by the bar chart's uncanny clarity. And Eliza, ever the enigma, had vanished after the governor's verdict, leaving only her cryptic summons. Alex couldn't shake the memory of her touch, the way her fingers had grazed his when she'd warned him about enemies. She was a puzzle, equal parts ally and danger, and her knowledge of his machine was a spark in a powder keg. He'd spent the afternoon tying up loose ends, finalizing the ledger's summary pages and sketching a cryptic diagram in his notes, a half-remembered schematic of the quantum device that had stranded him here. He labeled it Temporal Relay, jotting annotations like Quantum Core Unstable and 1,700 Anchor Point. It was a long shot, a hacker's Hail Mary, but if the machine existed, this sketch might jog his memory or someone else's. He'd tucked it into his ledger, unaware that Eliza had already seen it, her sharp eyes catching every detail. The docks grew quieter as Alex approached the Sea Serpent, its black hull gleaming like obsidian under the moonlight. A figure emerged from the shadows, and his breath caught. Eliza Hammond stood before him, her crimson gown replaced by a fitted corset and flowing skirt, the fabric hugging her curves in a way that was both colonial and defiant. Her dark hair spilled loose, catching the sea breeze, and her eyes glittered with a mix of mischief and menace. In her hand was a lantern, its glow casting seductive shadows across her face. "You came," she said, her voice a sultry purr that sent a shiver through him. "I wasn't sure you'd have the nerve." Alex forced a grin, his pulse racing. "You drop a bomb like Time Machine. I'm showing up. So, what's the deal? You gonna tell me how you know what you know?" Eliza stepped closer, her lantern swaying, the light dancing across his borrowed breeches. "Patience, Alex," she murmured, her fingers brushing his arm, light but deliberate. "First, you meet my contact. He's particular, but he has what you need." She nodded toward the sea serpent, where a cloaked figure waited on the deck, his face obscured by a tricorn hat. Alex's instincts screamed trap, but curiosity and Eliza's proximity kept him rooted. "This contact," he said, lowering his voice. "He's got my machine, the thing that brought me here?" Her smile was a blade, sharp and enticing. "Something like it, but it's not what you think. Come aboard and see for yourself." The gangplank creaked under their weight as they boarded the sloop, the cloaked figure watching silently. Up close, Alex caught a glimpse of weathered hands and a glint of Silvera pocket watch, oddly modern in its design. The man's voice was low, accented with a trace of something foreign. "You're the scribe," he said, not a question. "The one who draws machines that defy time." Alex's mouth went dry. "Who are you? And what do you know about my drawings?" The man chuckled, pulling back his hood to reveal a scarred face and piercing blue eyes. "Call me Gideon Voss. I'm a collector of anomalies. Your sketch, the one you call Temporal Relay, is no mere doodle. It's a key." He produced a folded parchment Alex's sketch, pilfered from his ledger. "And this ship holds the lock." Before Alex could react, a shout rang out from the docks. "Carter!" Corporal Amos Reed's voice boomed, followed by the clatter of boots. "You're wanted for questioning. Step away from that ship." The guards were closing in, their lanterns bobbing like fireflies. Eliza cursed under her breath, her composure cracking. The climax erupted in a heartbeat. Gideon seized Alex's arm, dragging him toward a hatch in the deck. "Move, or you're done for," he hissed. Eliza hesitated, her eyes darting between Alex and the approaching guards. "Go," she snapped, shoving Alex toward the hatch. "I'll handle them." Alex stumbled into the ship's hold, Gideon slamming the hatch behind him. The darkness was suffocating, broken only by the glow of a strange device in the corner tangle of gears and wires, pulsing with an unnatural light. It wasn't his quantum rig, but it was close. A prototype that screamed wrong century. "What the hell is this?" Alex breathed, his coder's brain racing. "Your way out," Gideon said, his voice urgent. "Or your cage, if you stay. The machine's incomplete, but it can send you somewhere. Maybe home, maybe elsewhere. Choose now, scribe. The guards are coming, and they won't ask politely." Above, Eliza's voice rang out, smooth and commanding. "Gentlemen, you're mistaken," she called to the guards, her tone dripping with charm. "Mr. Carter's with me, discussing trade. Surely you wouldn't interrupt ladies' business?" Her words were a distraction, buying Alex seconds, but the guards' shouts grew louder, their boots pounding the gangplank. Alex's mind spun. Stay, and he'd have the governor's favora cushy life as chief scribe. maybe even a chance to unravel Eliza's secrets. But the machine, pulsing like a digital heartbeat, was a siren's call. It could be his ticket to 2025, to his servers and his life. Or it could strand him in another era, another trap. And Eliza, could he trust her? Did she know about the machine because she was part of it? Or was she playing him like a chess piece? Gideon's eyes bored into him. 10 seconds, Carter. In or out? Alex's hand tightened on his quill. The USB of his Colonial Saga. He glanced at the machine, then at the hatch, where Eliza's voice still wove its spell. The guards were aboard now, their shouts echoing. He had to choose safety or the unknown, Charlestown or the void. The hatch burst open, and Alex made his move, his decision a spark in the dark. But what he chose, and where it led, is a tale for another night. The docks of Charlestown fell silent, the sea serpent swaying in the tide, its secrets locked in the hold. Was Alex still in 1700, carving a new life? Or had the machine whisked him to another time, another danger? And what of Eliza, with her velvet voice and hidden truths? The answers lie ahead, waiting to unfold in the next chapter of this time-twisting saga. Stay tuned to my channel for the thrilling continuation, because the past isn't done with Alex Carter, and neither are we.